So, look, when I implemented ChatGPT into my team, it literally doubled our productivity overnight. Without a doubt, it maybe 3x our productivity. So the speed of being able to pull this data into one for our clients has been fantastic. So I've built ChatGPT prompts and processes throughout those 5 Ps of the Keystone Property Investment Program to really help them accelerate not only our systems, but how they can get to their position, their purpose, preparing really well, purchasing, and then prospering from there.
Welcome to Get Invested on the Property Hub podcast channel, the leading weekly show to help you unlock your full self-health and wealth potential. I'm your host, Bushy Martin, and each week I go deep with the best investors, experts, leaders, and founders to find out what it takes to break free from the grind, discover freedom, and live by design. Subscribe now and join me and get invested in the life you really want. Let's get started. Hi, freedom fighters. How do you make decisions? How many variables, factors, dynamics, trends, facts, and figures do you consider before making a decision? Or do you just go with your gut feel and then justify your choices after the event? And what about property? How do you decide the when, the where, and the what of your property decisions? What combination of facts, figures, trends, and predictions do you consider before making big dollar property decisions? Chances are it won't be many, because most of us just don't have the time or expertise to consider everything that's necessary. We just don't know what we don't know. So how do you know you're making good, sound property decisions based on all of the key drivers? If you're an investor or a home buyer, property can seem simple, but in reality, it's not easy. As with success in everything, the devil's always in the detail. And as I've said before, property performance has more dynamics and combinations than the old primary coloured 3x3 Rubik's Cube, which is about 48 quintillion combinations, and that's 48 with 18 zeros after it. So it's no surprise that predicting the performance of property is about as easy and reliable as predicting the weather. And we all know how accurate that is. So how can we possibly get our heads around all of the constantly changing macro, micro, and micro influences, analyse them, rate them, and then make good concluding decisions quickly enough for them to be relevant? Well, the simple answer is that we can't. We're forced to make big assumptions and compromises and make a best guess, which is often not much better than rolling the dice. Or we can engage an independent team of property experts who analyse the right data and who have a proven track record of performance. And while this narrows the odds substantially, it's still a bit hit and miss because we simply don't have the intelligence or time to consider everything. But what if there was a super brain intelligence tool that's way more intelligent than any of us that could analyse all of the data dynamics almost instantaneously to assist you to make much better informed decisions? A super brain that is at least 1,000 times more intelligent than Albert Einstein. A brain that's equivalent to the computing power of the 20 most powerful supercomputers in the world combined. Well, there already is. It's called artificial intelligence, and we can all access it now via ChatGPT and many other sources. If you're not aware of it, and you haven't been living under a rock for some time, ChatGPT is a powerful AI-powered predictive analytics and forecasting tool that can help you to make much better and faster decisions. ChatGPT is a natural language processing platform that uses machine learning algorithms to generate predictive analytics and forecasting models. So, have you used ChatGPT yet? If you haven't, you need to get onto it, because the world's about to be transformed forever over the next couple of years by the fast approaching tsunami of AI. And make no mistake, there's going to be a few winners and many losers in the aftermath of the AI pandemic that will make COVID look like a common cold in comparison. And the dividing line between those that thrive and those that don't survive the AI Armageddon will be those who embrace it now and make it happen versus those who ignore it and end up run over and left in the dust saying, shit, what just happened? And nowhere is the opportunity for AI greater than the wonderful world of property. Property is a massive fragmented industry driven by ever-changing dynamics that's typically slow to change. As a result of the massive take-up of ChatGPT since December last year, artificial intelligence and machine learning are gaining prominence across the board and have the potential to transform property investment. So what are the property opportunities and the threats of AI? And what do you need to do to ensure you're on the right side of it so that you can actually benefit from all of this? If these questions that you've been contemplating are on your mind, then you've landed in exactly the right place, because today's special guest, Dax Stanley, is going to open your eyes and ears to the wonderful world of AI property investment. Dax is an author who's currently writing a book on using ChatGPT for property investing to show you how you can embrace this innovative AI technology so that ChatGPT can better enable you with data-driven decision-making, market analysis, and informed property selection. Through his upcoming book, Dax aims to empower you as investors to harness ChatGPT's capabilities, optimize your portfolios, and embrace a more prosperous property future. And this groundbreaking work builds on Dax's extensive property and professional background, where he successfully merges his qualifications, experience, and expertise across science, engineering, business, and technology to create better property investment outcomes. Dax is also the visionary founder of Hera Property Group. And since 2002, he's been actively involved in buying, renovating, and developing properties, gaining invaluable experience and knowledge along the way. Through his data-driven approach, Dax's dedication to incorporating cutting-edge technology ensures you have a comprehensive understanding of your investment choices. So if you want to take your property performance to the next level by riding the wave of AI, you're going to love this inspiring chat with Dax Stanley. So welcome, and let's get invested, Dax.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me aboard, Bushy.
Looking forward to the chat, mate. So I love the work that you're doing right across the board in property and in AI in particular. So we'll get into that shortly. But before we do that, mate, can you sort of start off by telling us what you do differently and, more importantly, why you do what you do, Dax?
Look, I turned 50 next year, so it's been a long journey. And it's a real big exploration for me, where I was in corporate for 20 years and doing some renovations and flips for myself on the side. And it wasn't until I got to a point where one development deal made me enough money that it earned me more than I earned in that year in my day job, and I quit. So it was a real amazing time to do that. But I did miss that corporate, high-tech, innovative view where real estate wasn't in that space. So, and just now, like you said, in December, ChatGPT came out, and we really dived into it. I started with AI with Mindstorm. Lego Mindstorm had a brick that you could program, and we programmed it with AI to learn to get around a maze. It was amazing, but now the power that we can use with this, I was able to combine all my high tech with my property investing to now come up. And we've been using this tool since it started, and my whole team uses it now. And that's where I got to the point where I need to tell the world about this.
Yeah, I love it. Well, look, before we sort of dive into it, I'd love for you to take us back through your journey and give us a bit of a Reader's Digest of where you've invested your own time, energy, and money over the years, and why, and how has this now led you to where you are and what you're doing today. And not just the property piece, because we'll dive into that shortly, but given your quite varied background and the areas of qualifications that you have, I'd love for you to talk us through how you got into that and how that's informed your own investment journey as you've moved through all that.
Yeah, fantastic. So I started at Melbourne University in '92. I did a double degree in environmental science and IT and geomatic engineering. Now, geomatic means geo is earth, matic is measurement. So it was a lot about land surveying, so traditionally a land surveyor, but also remote sensing, satellite imagery, GPS. GPS was not around. I can tell you a story about that a little bit later, where we invented a GPS for ambulances in Melbourne. They used fax machines to get the right readouts. Crazy times. But out of that, I did my honours degree in virtual reality modelling language, which was to map Melbourne University in 3D. I then presented it at a conference at VRML 97 in Monterey, California, and got my first job with Dell Computers over there. So it was around the .com era, if anyone remembers that, and also the the Y2K bug. So I was deep in high-tech, innovative projects, trying to solve this thing that may have ended the world. COVID's not the only thing that could have ended us. There's that Y2K bug could have as well, but it didn't. All us IT geeks, nerds that people picked on when we were growing up, we saved the planet.
I love it. I'd love for you to talk to us about Dax, because the interesting mix of areas that you were studying, quite unusual in my own exercise, where you're combining environmental sciences with land surveying and the IT piece. So what was the attraction that drew you towards getting educational exposure across those reasonably diverse areas?
Yeah, I think what really appealed to me, I was always a techie. I got my first computer, an Amiga 1000, when I was 10. And many sleepless nights, many times mum would come down to my room at 1 or 2 in the morning, go, get off that thing. And that sort of led me into that. And the IT, environmental science sort of stuff, I was always out in the bush, BMX riding and all this sort of stuff. And I just really wanted to combine that. High school was just sort of giving you that broad view of just little bits. And I just love that idea of, I didn't want to just go into engineering. I really wanted to get into the environmental science as well. And we were the first students to go through environmental science at Melbourne Uni. So I just love that sort of bleeding edge almost, if you want to talk that. And so I found those alignments where I could create 3D environments, being, the environment sort of side of things, geomatic measurements and engineering to create these virtual reality environments in that space. So land and environment's been very critical, but my geek needed to be satisfied as well.
I love all of those, and a very powerful combination when it comes to the wonderful world of property investment, Dax, so which I'm sure we'll dive into shortly. But if you sort of look back on your career to date then, and the highs and lows that you've been through, what challenging events have brought about your greatest learnings and the best changes as you've seen it?
Yeah, good question. So after Dell, well, actually, Dell was a 6-month contract. I got a call which was just like out of the movies. They said, you need to come back for your country. And I was like, what do you mean? This is a joke. And they're like, no, we saw you at VRML 97, present. You're the only person in Australia that knows VRML. We need you to come back to work with the Special Forces, the SASR in Perth. I've never been to Perth, to work on the counter-terrorism for the 2000 Olympics. And it was like a mic drop situation. I was like, what? I couldn't say no. So
exactly.
For the 3 years leading up to the Olympics, I worked with the SSR with an amazing team of techies to help them create their back-end IT command and support system that if anything went wrong, they would use that to help solve any counterterrorism issues. So that was fantastic. And coming off that high, it's almost you're trying to find another project and there's nothing like that. So you really got to sit back, and it's like when you're property developing, you do an amazing subdivision, make heaps of money, and then you've got to sit back and go, okay, I need another one. And so that high and low sort of thing you need to be comfortable with. Yeah, so I got that. Then I started working in other defense areas. And that's where I got to experience my first time to actually build an infrastructure. So it was a surface-to-air missile trainer system simulator out near Hahndorf in South Australia. And I got to build my first factory, literally. It was a warehouse with a HVAC. It had data center, command system, a 40-foot dome with projectors on it, projecting onto the inside with this missile system to protect Australia. I loved the whole project, but I loved learning how to build an actual factory and all this sort of stuff. And that sort of led me down, okay, there's something around that for me for building properties. And it stayed with me for that whole time. I think the next hump was I was at the top of my game. there was only 2 people in Australia running the simulation departments in 2 different competing companies.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to stay. It was 8 years into it, run multiple multi-million-dollar projects. So I did my master's. I did my Master's of Business Technology at AGSM, and learnt the life and the pulse of business and how to run businesses. So I jumped out of that and started management consulting. So I thought, I won't start my own business. I'll help other people fix their businesses. So I was called a firefighter. So a business was falling down. The CEO would say, hey, consultants, come in and tell me what's going wrong. So that was a great journey. And it was great because you'd come in and go, okay, this is what's wrong. This is some recommendations. And they'd turn around and say, well, come in and fix it. And we turned businesses around. So it was using tech, transformation, all that sort of stuff. I did that for 12 years, literally. In between, I actually jumped out to the other side. So I got an offer from NBN, another big project that I thought was amazing. I went, and I was right at the start, and they hired me to put the billing system in, the $22 million billing system. And I moved down from Sydney, where I was doing some flips in my own personal time. And I got there and I said, okay, so what are we putting in? And they said, you figure that out. I said, okay, where's my technical expert who knows about wholesale billing systems? And they said, you find him. And I went, yes, let's do this. So yes, it was daunting. Yes, it was, a big thing to put in an infrastructure for Australia. But it wasn't something I wasn't afraid of. So that was fantastic. And in that journey, I then stayed in the corporate side of things. So I stayed out of consulting, started working in big companies, ended up in Salesforce for a number of years, helping big companies implement those systems. And while I was in Salesforce, I decided that was that for townhouse development that made me enough money to jump out.
The common thread I'm hearing with what you're sharing with us, Dax, is your creative problem-solving abilities. That seems to be a bit of a common thread. Is that something that just come naturally to you, or something that's been honed and developed because of the experiences?
Look, I think underlying, yes, I've got a passion for that and passion for new things. It's also a double-edged sword as well, because I can go after the latest shiny thing and get distracted. Yeah, and probably people can relate to that, where it's like, oh, look at that new thing, I'll play with that. I've learned over the 49 years I've been alive is that that's not always good, and focusing on what works and what I know works, and focus on that one thing. So, yeah, I think that creativity over time, being involved with amazing projects and new technologies and new things has honed my skills in that space, but there's also an underlying drive there.
Yeah, I understand. If we look back on your life so far then, Dax, are there any really standout, seriously challenging events that have really caused you to rethink what you do and how you do it? And what was that, and what have been the learnings that have come out of all of that?
Yeah, the two that really come to mind was my brother's passing away when he was 24. It was a car accident, fell asleep driving. I was 28 in Perth, working on the counter-terrorism for the Olympics. And it was a real rude awakening how short life is. And it was really sudden. I don't have any other siblings. So it was quite a pivotal point in my life to really reassess where I'm at and not take things for granted. Because up till then, I was the first person in our whole lineage that ever finished year 12, did a degree, and then out into corporate. And I just seemed to flow from one thing to another. That's when I really started going, I need to have intention on what I want to do and have a real passion and drive and goals around that, instead of just letting life flow.
Yeah.
So that's the first one, and that really started driving down what I really want. The second thing that comes to mind is divorce. So 8 years ago, I got divorced. It was terrible. I couldn't see my son. That led me to, suicidal thoughts and all sorts of things that was really, and, I feel for anyone that's going through it now. And that, and I'd built up quite a big portfolio of 4 properties. And and I said, so it's about intention. I set the intention to have this divorce finished within a year. And I spent a lot of my time with my son, and I really wanted 50% there. So I paid for that, if anyone knows that sort of thing. So I paid 80% of my portfolio so I could get 50% of my son.
Yeah.
And it was the best decision I ever made. My son and I, he's 15 now, close relationship. We've had our ups and downs and all that sort of stuff that everyone has. I lost him a bit when he was 13, but now 15, he's sort of come out of that really well. But yeah, money can't pay for, well, money did pay for that to a certain extent. But I think that they're the 2 big pivotal points there.
Well, I guess while making the best out of a bad situation, the fact that you were in a fairly strong position as far as your assets and whatnot was concerned because of the work that you'd started a lot earlier, probably put you in a stronger position to be able to negotiate the situation and maintain that intimate relationship with your son that you probably otherwise wouldn't if you hadn't actually put yourself in that position. I'd love now to sort of dive into that part of the journey and get you to break down, your own property journey. You mentioned the exercise with Defence years ago, and that project there in Hahndorf in South Oz. Can you sort of talk us through from that point onwards in terms of your own personal situation? Why did you decide to invest in property, and what triggered your interest to make that step?
Yeah, good question. So, look, it sounds a bit cliched, but I read Rich Dad Poor Dad in 2000 because my brother had passed away, and I was really like, what do I want to do? And I was reading a lot and learning, and read this book and went, oh my God, why don't they teach this at school? Yeah, it was crazy. So I said to Mum, I'm saving money for a house, and she had her neighbor that she was helping out. Her son was a real estate agent, and then I met him, and he sold me an apartment off the plan, just straight away. I didn't, no research, nothing like that. I trust him. He's a family friend of a neighbor, and thought I'd just buy it. Worst decision ever. But I did learn a lot, so I really wanted to know everything. I even went to settlement, so I went to the room with all the law clerks, sit around, and the bank sits on a bench and exchange stuff, and it was really interesting to know the mechanics. And then when it was built, I put my hand up to be the chairman of the body corporate, so I could learn everything like that. And I was there for 7 years, I think, roughly. And built a nice big nest egg so that we could do all the assessments before the builder's insurance ran out. And it was a disaster. It was actually, they built the walls too thin. It was going to cost it was 80 units. It was going to cost about $1.5 million to fix. And as soon as I got that report, I resigned, put it on the market. I knew when to get out. I wasn't going to go through that. So in that time frame, I had saved enough to buy a duplex. Actually, to tell you the truth, that apartment was on one of the top floors, and the real estate agent sold it because he kept it for himself. But when it got built, he thought he could see the city. It was in Burwood in Sydney. He thought he could see the city from the distance, but when it built up, there was trees in the way. When I got it, I went up there the first day. I looked out, and they'd cut the trees down. And I could see a little harbour bridge and the whole city beside it. So I made 40 grand like overnight. That was great. Yeah. So I got a bit more money. I bought a duplex as one side, old rundown rental with smoke stains up on the wall, and ripped up the carpets, did a kitchen bathroom renovation, made 120. And then I was able to leapfrog those into the next one. And that's where I really got excited. I'd go to work in a suit as a corporate management consultant. I'd like plaster dust on my clothes and everything. But that's what you do. You get home, you do a bit of work, and then go back to the apartment, fall asleep. And so I started doing that until the divorce. And once I had the divorce went through, I had a really small nest egg, had to sell all the assets, and decided development was the right way to go for me. So
and that, I mean, that's no mean feat for anyone jumping into the development space. Sometimes you go into the development space with almost a false sense of confidence because you've done a lot of existing stuff or whatnot. Did you have any initial fears and concerns around getting into the development space? And if so, what were they, and how did you overcome them? And then what was your first experience in the development sphere like?
Yeah, there was a lot of fear because I'd lost 80% of my portfolio for the divorce. I didn't want to lose what I had left, but I had the nuance that I could do it again. I could grow that, and I could grow it faster because I'd learned from that. So I could go down the same path that I was, but I started shopping around and there's a whole lot of property development courses and mentors, and just started gathering a whole lot of information around that space, like I do with any sort of tech or new thing. Research. And I got a really good mentor. And within that mentor group, there was another person there, another two people that joined me to form a joint venture. So we had more money to go buy some land and do a 4-lot subdivision. Now, the first strategy is once you've got the subdivision plans and permits approved, we'll put it on the market for a good price, and we sold it. So we really didn't have to do anything to that extent. So that was a really good leapfrog just to get a taste of it. And then the one after that was we did it completely, having confidence. And, having a joint venture agreement with people, I think now we like doing small ones with a small group to test out their stress levels and test out how they react to certain situations. Because in property development and in property in general, you're always going to have issues, without a doubt. And it's how you manage them, how you roll with them that makes it successful. So you want to see if you've got a good team that will work together.
Absolutely. And, the property game itself is complicated enough, yet alone effectively marrying people that you probably don't know that well in the context of it. And then with the dynamics of changing lifestyles between when you decide to do the development and when the development finishes, and potentially changing market conditions over that time, then I can certainly see where a really good mentor would have been instrumental in the outcome of that. And no doubt having a very tightly documented JV agreement would have been an essential part of that too. Would I be right? Yeah,
my lawyer was amazing. Yeah, really fantastic. And if any of the people in the JV are not educated, they need to be. They need to understand this. They understand the risks involved in that. If they're not for us. This is savvy investing. It's a lot of money in there. You need to be able to deal with the risks and issues that come with it.
Yeah, absolutely right. So I'm sensing that your investment strategy has evolved and changed over time, given what you shared with it. Can you sort of spell out what was your initial investment strategy when you first started in property, and how has it evolved over time, and why?
Yep. So flipping was the buy something, renovate it. Well, didn't really sell them, but literally build up equity to buy another one, and then equity on both of them to the third one. And then the fourth one. I love that. I learned over that I can rip things apart, but I can't put them back together. And sometimes I rip them apart really badly, which costs me more. Also, I learned what doing it for the market, not for what I think is worth it. So I would overcapitalize at the first few, buy Dalton toilets and the best finishings and stuff like that. the markets I was in, they don't need that. I just thought, well, I like it, so it's a great idea. So I learned all that and cost estimating and making sure I get my numbers right before I jump in. So from there, I was at that point in time that I was ready to do the development side of things. And also I knew that I could make more money there. Higher risk, higher return. A lot more work, more due diligence and things like that. Yep. So I started doing that, and then people started asking me to buy property for them as well. So one of the JV guys goes, "Oh, can you buy me a house at this auction?" Did a couple more. And I think evolving into then helping other people build wealth in their property really started me looking at a whole range of strategies for people, because everyone's in a different situation. It's like, well, what will help them get to retirement, or how will they get to spend more time with the people they love, and have that day off to play golf, or what are their goals and what are they trying to achieve? Very similar to when I was in management consulting, figuring out what the company needed to do.
Yeah.
And I just loved it even more to help actual people, do this. And so that evolved into, a whole range of projects for people, looking from house and land to existing. I always loved manufacturing equity. And what I mean by that, and this is, being able to put sweat equity, time, effort to improve the property, subdivide, create more land, put a granny flat out the back. It doesn't matter what the market's doing. If you do it the right way, you're still going to make money. So I love that for the current strategies that we're doing with our clients.
And you make a really good point there. What I love about property is you create your own economy. Because unfortunately the mainstream media likes to categorize everything, and everything's about the median price value. But as you and I know, every property in every street and every suburb is different to every other one. So there's no real true comparison. Median prices can be quite misleading, I believe, because if you're focusing on the right solution in the right area and to satisfy the demand, then it doesn't matter what's happening with the economy, it's always going to do well. So it's a really good point you make there. Jump into the future for a minute, Dax. Can you tell us what fulfillment, freedom and financial independence means to you?
Yeah. So, well, it's always on my mind. It's on my board. Spending more time with my family, experiencing more things, helping the planet. Environmental science, yeah. And look, helping other people get there is a really big thing for me. I can see myself, one of the big goals is, eco villages with sustainable environments, off the grid, supplying their own energy through their own solar farms, but also supplying the local town with energy and food. Building a community where we used to be communities very tight 100, 200 years ago, thousands of years ago. And it's a real passion of mine to bring that back into our lives.
Yeah.
So yeah, freedom for me is to, bring that to fruition. Firstly, to make myself and my family financially free. So through passive income, through property, and then help the world.
Love it. We mentioned in the green room that you're about to turn 50 and you're doing something pretty interesting with that. Can you share that with us?
Yes. So, everyone usually gets their big party and, they want all their friends around and stuff like that. I'm a little bit selfish in that instance. I was meditating and I was thinking about what I'd like to do. And really, I'd like to experience myself. And who I really am and who I really want to be over the next 50, 70 years. I think I'm going to live to about 125 at least. So I really want to put a line in the sand. So I'm going to take a wad of cash, credit card and a passport to the airport and disappear for 50 days and just explore and just, probably out, in nowhere, no talking to anyone maybe. Might take my surfboard, I'm just learning to surf again. But yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Great time to actually step outside of the world and reflect a little bit on where you've come from and where you want to go to, and the best way to make that happen. There's just no better exercise than travel in an area where you're not known to actually to take the time to really have a good think, mate. So I reckon it's an awesome approach, and I can't wait to hear the outcome of the trip, mate. So make sure you share that with us. But sort of jumping back into the investment sphere now, Dax, if you look back on what you've achieved so far, what do you think's been your best and worst investment, and what have you learned from each of those?
Okay, let's start with the worst. The worst just finished last Friday. It was 3 years of pain and trauma and stress that was a really bad outcome. So I decided to lend money to a developer. So money lending is one area of property investing you can do, and I can see you grimacing.
Well, they big promises of massive returns, but given what's happened in the industry in the last couple of years in particular, it's a massive throw of the dice. Correct.
And what I learned from that, I can tell you a little bit about the situation, is one, due diligence. That's all. And you need to have a really good lawyer to really go deep on their financials, their history and stuff like that. We only found out when we swapped lawyers for 6 months ago that, we hired the new lawyer and we got off the phone. He rang us about an hour later and said, "Oh, did you know that this developer was bankrupt 8 years ago?" And we went, "No." And he goes, "Would you have signed the contract if you knew that?" And we went, "No." And he goes, "Well, it sounds like your lawyer didn't pick that up." Now, a broker can't pick that up because they don't have access to that, but a lawyer does. So I've been through 3 years of pain because of that one thing. We finally settled on an amount. So we've been getting dribs and drabs over the last 3 years, but we settled just on Friday, which has been a huge relief. Been fantastic. We'd never. I wouldn't say I'd never money lend again, but I'd never use that lawyer again.
Yeah, so was it really just the lawyer that was the issue around the exercise? If you had the right lawyer right from the outset, who probably would have said, "Hey, based on this history, don't do it." Were there any other learnings and approaches to this? Because it's an area that a lot of people are starting to delve into. I mean, the returns on other forms of investment have been a bit challenged. So the appeal of private lending into development exercises and the sort of massive returns that they promise in a very short space of time sounds very attractive, but it's the old story, wherever there's reward, there's risk. So I'd love for you to unpack that a little bit for us, if you don't mind.
Totally. So I think some of the key learnings is don't wait for 2.5 years to change lawyers. We shouldn't have believed any of the stuff that he was saying. We should have gone straight to a litigation lawyer or a debt collection lawyer and got him in, because within 6 months we had it closed. Yep. As soon as he defaulted, we should have done that. We should have got a lawyer who is not a property development lawyer, a litigation debt collecting lawyer. They've all got their different expertise. That's the key thing. The second key thing is communication between myself and my JV partners that came in on this deal with me. Was key. Finances, numbers, making decisions together was great. We really worked together at different stages. One guy would get overstressed about it and we'd say, "Take some time off, don't look at it, we'll deal with it." And then I would, and he'd take it over. So it was great from that perspective. But you've got to manage your stress levels, and you've got to manage when it's a lot of money and it's not coming back. You've got to be very careful with that. But we have a look at it. We were very successful. So we made 28% return per annum on that deal. Yep. We would have made a lot more if we'd pushed for the whole amount that he owed us, but we just wanted it closed. And that one of my JV partners is now off to Japan to retire. So
right. You actually achieved 28, despite all those difficulties, you still walked away with a 28% return on the investment.
Yes, we had caveats on his home and 2 development sites. So he needed to refinance. So it came to a point in time where we said, okay, we can either pull in these things and start debt collecting and closing things down and selling them all, or you pay us this much and we're out.
Well, I've got to say, yeah, if that's been your worst and you still walked away with 28%, that's a remarkable achievement in an area where there's a lot of dynamic risk associated with the whole development sphere, but particularly given the current climate that we're dealing in. So that's sensational. What about your best then? What's been your best investment and the learnings from that?
Look, that could have ended up with zero, that deal. So yes, we did really well, but for 3 years, we thought we were getting nothing. So it was a lot of stress. The best deal was 4 townhouse developments overall, and duplexes. But the 4 townhouse development we did in Mount Waverley was just brilliant. We worked closely with the town planner and council. It was sustainable and passive solar design. It really suited the character. It's really just understanding and nailing exactly what the council wants in the area, what the street wants. We talked to neighbours and all that sort of stuff. So it was my third one, so I was really into it then, and just working with the right people. So it was great because I was close by. I had a webcam on the power box, and I could see all the tradies who were there, and I would turn up. I knew which tradies were there, and I knew what coffees they liked and what they liked from Hungry Jack's for breakfast. So I would look on the webcam. I go there. I go past Hungry Jack's and get it, and turn up, and we do like a lunch around the lunch box, or around the toolbox we call it. And everyone would talk to each other while they're eating, and it really worked. And I've implemented this all the time now, that, the painters talking to the plasterer going, hey, when are you going to finish that? And, oh, yeah, I'm going to finish this. Okay, I'll get this guy in to do this. And I just sat back going, this is great. And so, yeah, we were very happy with that project. We got the pre-sales in early as well. So finance was settled. And, it still had its own issues, of course, but yeah, that was our best project.
Yeah, I love it. It's a bit of a derivation of the old beer carton currency on the building site, giving them coffees and HJs instead of beers. You probably threw a few beers in at the right time as well. But it's amazing how that sort of lubricates the whole transaction, builds relationships amongst the tradies who often are digging at each other and having a crack at each other. So I love the way you've humanised that whole exercise to everyone's benefit as a result. So brilliantly done. I now want to sort of switch into subjects that are close to your and my heart, Dax, and which is obviously investing in property, but also then we'll leverage into the discussion topic of the moment, which is the future of property as a result of AI. But sort of to set the scene on that, given the experience you've had personally and with Hera Property Group over the time, what common mistakes do you see property investors regularly making, and what's the best way to overcome them?
Some of the biggest ones I see is they don't plan. Most people that come to me, a lot of people who come to me, they don't know what retirement looks like. They don't know what sort of passive income they need to live off. It's a really key thing, fundamental, to go, if you don't know what you're aiming for, how are you going to get there? So that's probably the first thing that I see. The second thing is procrastination. I've got a couple of people that keep coming back every 3-6 months, sort of going, oh, I think I might be ready to buy now. And I, help them work out what they need to do. And then they freak out and go, oh, I'm too busy. I've got other things. So not procrastination, as well as not making the commitment. And I know, like you said at the start of the podcast, is that there's still, you've got to make, $1 million decisions with not a complete picture. You can't have all the data. Our brains can't fit it all in. So you have to have a bit of faith or trust in yourself, and look at your intuition to go, is this right for me or not? And so people that don't make the leap when we're presented everything we can and we know it's a great deal and they can understand, but I just don't want to do it, is really sad at sometimes, because, we go back 6 months later or 12 months later, it's made 10, 15%, and it's like, you could have been making that money.
Absolutely. No. On the flip side of that, then, given the exposure you've had right across the investment community over the years, what qualities and character traits have you seen that separate great investors from the rest?
Great investors have a level of self-confidence and self-awareness to know what's right for them. It's really a solid foundation of, this is where I'm going, this is what I know, this is how I'm going to get it. They don't know the steps between here and there, but they've got that, they're directionally correct. They have that level of confidence, and they also have a level of being able to dive into, ask the right questions from the right experts. Because I've got a whole team behind me and people I access. I don't have all the answers, but if they know how to ask the right questions, we can get them to a certain level.
Love it. It's that questioning, curious mind again, that's not scared to ask any question and keep asking it until you get the answer you need. Love that. Dax, again, in my Google stalking, I came across a great white paper that you put together recently on the 6 property investment trends that your competitors wish that you kept secret. Given the context of the times, are you happy to quickly break those down for us? Because it's going to be of real interest to the audience.
Yeah, look, the white paper is really focused on what's happening at a macro level of what really is influencing the market right now. And, you can go to the HERA website, HERA, property.com.au, and go to the research section where our white papers are. Look, the media tells you one thing and the facts tell you something else. So my team did a whole lot of analysis on it. Those 6 secrets are great to learn and understand, because you can actually cut through the media noise once you've read it and you just go, I can see how they've spun that to be negative, but if you use it in the right way, it's fantastic. I'll give one example where we've got massive immigration coming in. Millions of people are coming in over a number of years. We have a housing shortage. We have a rental increase. It's hard to get rentals. What does all those factors together mean as a property investor, and how can you tap into it? So yeah, I definitely recommend people to go and have a look at that. It's years of knowledge and experience pulled together to make sure that you can make clear decisions.
Yeah, it puts a really good perspective around the actual demand, supply and sentiment exercise. And whenever you've got a shortage of anything, which becomes evident in rental vacancies, it's a major indicator. And then you're pouring hundreds of thousands of people into the country over the next few years. It doesn't take Einstein to work out there's some pretty big opportunities coming out of that. Can you sort of give us a little, without going into too much detail, and this is not property advice, but what do these trends mean in relation to what, where, and when, and how we should be investing in the short to medium term?
Yes, this is not financial advice. Understanding those 6 trends and applying them to the 15,000 suburbs of Australia can be challenging. It's a lot of data. It's a lot of information. So you really need to niche down into what you're looking for. So understanding what your end goal is and what's the next purchase to get you on that rung will really help you use those 6 secret trends to understand what market you want to be in. Depending on your borrowing capacity and stuff like that, it'll really hone down into those suburbs, firstly, that you can afford. Yeah. Secondly, what's happening in those from a macro level down to a micro, down to the street level, even to the side of the street. So, if it's on a hill, the cheaper ones are down the bottom and the better ones are the top. So, my advice would be to start with what you can afford, find the suburbs that sit around that area, deep dive into where the governments are putting money, where the immigrants are coming in, understanding go to the Bureau of Statistics and find out what cultures are in there, because we know who are coming in. And if there's a large majority in there, they've probably got family and friends that are coming in there as well. So it's a really interesting mix right now that, you can really find some hot areas for different cultures that are coming in, and then you can find the right street in the right suburb to purchase.
Love it. Love it. Now, we keep talking about the incredible amount of data that you need to try and comb through to make sense out of it as far as property is concerned. There's a great segue now into the area of AI. How is the rapidly approaching transformational AI tsunami likely to affect the property industry as you're seeing it at the moment?
Can I just say, amazingly, it's a new age of property investing. New age of AI. Like I said, I used AI probably 10 years ago with my son. We bought a Lego Mindstorm that you could program AI as just a simple left, right, forward, or back, and he learned around the maze. Now they've trained ChatGPT on all the internet up till September 2021. Now, to have that access, and it's for free. You can just go there and get on there. You can pay the subscription, but you can use it today for free. And you just want to get on there and say, tell me about property investing in Australia, and see what it says. And just start having a dialogue with it to see what it can come up with. We've gone from December or November when we started using it. I used it, I think I spent between Christmas and New Year's, that's all I did to play with, shut down the business, and that's what I wanted to work on. And then after that, I create standard operating procedures for the team to actually use it in their day-to-day work. And as simple as, this is a prompt. Here is an email from a client, and paste the email in and say, okay, please respond to this client in a friendly, professional way and explain and dot point what you're trying to explain. And then press enter, and you see what happens.
It's amazing. I use it pretty much every day now as a consequence of that. It's just the speed and the ability to get clarity very quickly and sift through the stuff to get to the gems is awesome. If we apply that to the property sphere, then Dax, what are the opportunities and risks associated with AI, and how can we best take advantage of them? Yeah,
look, the advantage straight away is there's a number of ways. And the book I'm writing at the moment, I'm up to 10,000 words at the moment. And there's a whole lot of prompts in there. A prompt is where you prompt the AI to respond to you. So that's where you type it in. Some really key factors. One's you can get suburb analysis up to September 21, and we'll talk about the risks about that in a minute. But what I've found really valuable for clients is to say, hey, and put your bio in there, who you are, what your goals are. If you don't have any goals, don't worry, just put in who you are. I'm 35, I've got a wife, child, this is my job, this is my salary. Give me some ideas about property investing for someone like me. And you see what comes out. And then you can say, if you've got the other side of things, if you've got a portfolio, you can actually plug the portfolio in and say, how can I improve it? What can I do differently? We're looking at even doing feasibility studies on renovations and developments to go, here's all the stats, take your stats plus ours, because we now know how to plug in data from the end of the day to today, and get really clear results on it. And then, talking about the risks. Risks are very important. Anything new tech, anything high tech, you really need to know this, because you don't want to take it for truth. ChatGPT can make things up, okay? You can say, create a quote, and it'll create you a quote, and at the least amount of data, it just tries to guess to give you the right answer. Yeah. So firstly, the data's 2 years old, okay? So you've got to be very careful about that. When you try and find out a suburb median price, you can't get it, okay? But if you can say, what's the median price in September 2021, it'll give it to you. So you need to prompt it with a whole lot of data. And in my book, I show how you can set up the different chat windows with the different data of different suburbs and plug it all in so that you're teaching the AI what the latest data is. Okay, so that's the first one. The second risk, which is, I was just writing yesterday in the book, is it's not your go-to thing. It is not a professional. It is not a mentor. It is not an expert. Okay, it has to be driven by a human. If you put stuff in, you may get the wrong things out. So you always need to validate it. You always need to check with your intention and your intuition. You need to check facts as well. Don't take it on face value at all. Zero. Don't do it. You need to actually really make sure the output suits and is correct before you take any action. So that's it. I just put a big warning across everything like that. You know, you may say, hey, here's my portfolio, give me some ideas. And it goes, and, you know, you go, well, it doesn't know the Melbourne market, or, you know, didn't indicate Brisbane market's going off, or things like that. So you then prompt it again and say, here's some data about Melbourne, here's data about Brisbane, please review. And then it gets better and gets better and gets better.
Yeah.
So I hope that helps.
No, that's awesome. Are there any, given the work that you've done so far, any hacks or tips and tricks using ChatGPT in property investment that you're able to share?
Yeah, look, there's a thing when you pay for ChatGPT, the subscription, you get access to plugins. Okay. Now, our team is working on a plugin at the moment to tap into all the property data from September 21 to now. So we don't have to keep plugging in suburb data and stuff like that. So a real hack is to be able to get access to the internet with that sort of data through the plugins, and to be able to tap into our own database with our own data into it. But just a simple hack would be really start a chat window in there and say, hey, we're researching this suburb, go to the internet, take a whole lot of data from the internet of that suburb, you know, go real estate or domain, and take that in, plug it in and say, here's all the median prices from the last, 5 years, 10 years. This is the sort of houses I'm looking for. This is some of the renovation costs. Please come up with some ideas and strategies around investing in that. That's a really good one. The other good one I've got in the book is, hey, I'm 35. I'm in a corporate job, busy, but I want financial freedom when I retire. I want this amount of money. Give me a bit of a strategy, a table, and it has this. It does the Excel tables really well. Put it in a table with years and how much I should be getting out of my property portfolio so that I can cut and paste it into Excel. And it just goes, whoop, and you can cut, paste it in, and then you can play with it yourself. Really good hacks, asking it to put it into Excel format or Word format, and to be able to then use it in your own tools that you've been using.
Love it. Now, as a buyer's agent, Dax, I'm sure you've probably embedded ChatGPT into your processes, into helping investors to source better quality properties to suit their strategies. Can you expand a little bit on what separates Hera from a lot of the other buyers agents in the industry, and what can an investor expect as far as the AI involvement to fine-tune exercises when they come and talk to you and the Hera team?
Yep. So look, when I implemented ChatGPT into my team, it literally doubled our productivity overnight. Without a doubt, it maybe 3x our productivity. So the speed of being able to pull this data into one for our clients has been fantastic. And we've got this model called the Keystone Property Investor Accelerator Program, KPI Accelerator Program. And that works on the 5 Ps. So, firstly, we work out their position. So we gather all their data and we come up with a strategy and we plug it into ChatGPT and we start brainstorming around that. Once we've got that, we help them with their purpose. Sometimes, people don't know why they want to get that. So we go through their purpose and map that all out. Then we prepare them for the next purchase. Okay, that's the 3rd P. And all the data that they need, and we pull that in together. Then they go to the purchase, which is all about negotiation tactics. I was just writing a prompt in the book saying, and it can do role playing. So I can say, hey, I'm a buyer and I'm talking to a real estate agent to sell this. Let's do a role play that you're the real estate agent and I'm the buyer on buying a property. Go. And then they'll ask a question. So getting them to understand that, getting them around the purchase. And then after that, the final one is prosper. So how do we leverage that, the manufacturing equity and across that? So I've built ChatGPT prompts and processes throughout those 5 Ps of the Keystone Property Investment Program to really help them accelerate not only our systems, but how they can get to their position, their purpose, preparing really well, purchasing, and then prospering from there.
Love it. Love the 5 Ps and the KPI exercise. It's easy for us to get our heads around. And really love that you're inspiring and motivating us to embrace AI as an extra tool that's really going to crunch data that we just physically don't have the capacity or the time to do, and can't wait to see the book hit the stands. And we'll talk about the links to the book shortly. But I now want to sort of bridge into what I affectionately refer to as the ambush round, Dax, which are the podcast fast forward where I give you a blindfold and a cigarette, and we get you to do the machine gun dance. So to kick those off, what's your favourite quote and why?
My favorite quote is from Albert Schweitzer. It's success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success. If you love what you do, you will be successful. Now, I've learned that over time.
That's a great quote. Let's turn back to the literary field. And in addition to your own book that is still in the developing stages, what's the top book that you'd recommend we read and why?
My top book that I'm reading right now on Audible, let me have a look for you, is, and it's a great, I've just started it, but I'm loving it at the moment. It's called, when it loads up, Psycho-Cybernetics. It's like the grandfather of how to train your mind for success, literally.
Love it. Love it. I haven't read that one, so I'm going to add that to my own Kindle list. So thanks for the tip on that, Dax. Dax, sort of switching back into the property sphere for a moment, and I'm talking about investment advice now. What's both the worst and the best piece of investment advice that you've ever received?
The worst piece of advice I've received is get into debt for everything. House, car, furniture, just live off debt. It's fine. It's what it's there for. Live off credit card debt. Why not? And as we know, there's a whole lot of bad debt and there's a lot of good debt. And you need to learn that very quickly, I think. And it should be taught at school.
100% agree. Yep. What about the flip side?
The best piece of advice, I guess it goes into 2. One is begin with the end in mind. Yeah. The other one is research. You don't have to research all the time. It's like if you're going to go buy a car or even a house, you need to go deep dive on that area of expertise for a short amount of time, and chat really helps you with that to go, what's the latest trends in property investment? Give me some ideas, give me the legal ramifications in New South Wales about property investing. What should I look out in the contract? And chat's awesome for that, to just come up to speed really quickly with that domain expert. So I wouldn't even say for property investing, but for anything, but for property investing, as complex it is, you can go in there and ask, what does a conveyancer do? How can I use equity in my property to buy another property? And, you may see ads and you can plug that into chat and go, what do they mean by that? So begin with the end in mind and just knowledge and just research. And you only need to know it for a short amount of time, 3 months until you buy the next one, and then out. You can go back to whatever you're doing. And then we catch up with you, 3-6 months later, go, okay, we're ready to buy again.
Yeah, I love that. It's the old adage of investing your knowledge first so that you can actually then manage your managers is really key, because you don't want to totally outsource your future wealth to someone else without understanding at least the basics, and then being able to keep them honest in their endeavors as far as that. So that's really good advice, and using ChatGPT as your virtual mentor in that sense to really bring you up to speed with terminology and language, and an understanding of it is a great way to go. So last question in the Fast Four. What's a personal happy habit, rewarding ritual, or daily discipline that you employ that's contributed most to your success today?
I would say the one thing that's really helped the most in the most stressful situations and even the most difficult and complex situations is meditation. So I meditate 20 minutes when I get up. I go for a walk, come back, cold shower, and then just after lunch, after this podcast, I'll go back for another 20 minutes in silent meditation. It provides a gap between the stimulus, somebody saying something or doing something, to my reaction. And it separates that gap to give me time to think about it, to intentionally create the right response that I want to respond back with, instead of being snap and things go wrong.
Love it. Creating the pregnant pause, which very few of us do, because we're always under the pump, but actually building in that time to allow the pause and allow the grey matter to look at an appropriate response rather than the reactive response is awesome. And
one point I just want to add, some people might be listening going, I don't have time to meditate 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the afternoon. It's funny, when you learn a bit about meditation, when somebody says that, it's literally like, well, you'll probably need it the most. So give it a go.
What do you got to lose? What have you got to lose?
20 minutes for a couple of weeks and see the difference. It's amazing.
100% agree. It's been an awesome conversation, Dax. But to sort of summarise, the key exercise we talked about today, what are your key takeaways and the immediate actions that aspiring investors need to take?
Yeah, I think, if you don't have that end in mind, you don't know where you want to get to at retirement or passive income, and thinking about why you want to do that. Do you want to break the daily grind? Do you want to get your time back with your family and do what you love? Really hone in on that and solidify that in your mind and have that written up like we do, and see it every day. If you do that, it comes true. And I've seen clients do this over and over again, and literally a 10-year plan happens in 5 years. That's probably my key takeaway from there. And if you're interested in the book, definitely, I know Bushy, you probably put something in the show notes here, but it's on the Hera Property website as a wait list. I just finished 10,000 words. I've finished up to the last couple of chapters to go yesterday. So I'm really excited to get that out. To help people. That's called Real Estate Investing ChatGPT Edition, Less Human Error and More Property Wealth.
Love that. And for those who are listening in, if you want to get on the pre-order list, make sure you jump on member.heraproperty, that's HERA property.com.au/ChatGPT/property/investing. So make sure you take advantage of that. For those of us that have really resonated with your message, Dax, how can we find out more and get more involved with you?
Yeah, you can go to our company website, or you can go to my Facebook, Dax Stanley, or Instagram, same name, or LinkedIn. So I'm available on all those sorts of channels, happy to help. You'll see there's a lot of advice, tips. I've got about 170 videos on YouTube as well. If you go there, you'll see some sneak peeks of me doing my morning exercise and talking about the chapter I'm going to write after my exercise. So you'll see those. They actually hit a whole lot of, I think over 7,000 people hit it the other day, which resonated with them. So that was really fantastic. So jump on there. I think it's in the shorts on my Instagram as well. To just give you a bit of a taste of what you're going to get when you get the book.
I love it. It's been a great conversation, Dax. We've only really scratched the surface, so we'll stay in touch and talk further. And when the book actually hits the stands, then we'll get you back to sort of deep dive into aspects of that. But look, I really want to thank you for being very generous with your time and opening our eyes to the opportunity that AI is going to bring to all of us as property investors. So let's keep the conversation going.
Yeah, thank you, Bushy. It's great to be on here and help your audience with this new age of property investing. And if they can embrace it instead of just sort of push it away, they're going to make much better decisions with much more data and get a great result. But remember, you're at the steering wheel. So don't let go of the steering wheel. You are driving this ship. Don't let the AI do it.
Love it. Great final words of wisdom, and let's stay in touch, Dax.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Get Invested on the Property Hub podcast channel, your home for property investment insights and inspiration. And don't leave yet until you've taken the next step towards living by design by getting my award-winning book, Get Invested, absolutely free when you sign up at knowhowproperty.com.au or bushymartin.com.au. And finally, make sure you subscribe to Property Hub to get your weekly dose of Get Invested inspiration, along with every episode of Realty Talk, Australia's leading property show for red-hot property investing news and insights, direct from industry leaders and influencers. Remember to always get invested in your knowledge, and I look forward to seeing you next time.